Call to order the regular meeting of the Dickinson City Commission for January 9th, 2024. Let the record show that all commissioners are present. First item this evening will be the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you all for attending this evening's meeting. First item is the order of business. Mr. Dossinger, are there any changes to the order of business?
Good evening, Mr. President, members of the Commission. There's no change to the order of business this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Dossinger. Any questions on the order of business? Not, I'd look for a motion on the order of business.
I'd move to approve.
Motion to approve the order of business.
Second.
Second. All in favor of the order of business as presented, state aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next item on the agenda is the consent agenda. Commissioners, are there any items in the consent agenda you wish to discuss? If not, I'd look for a motion on the consent agenda.
Mr. President, I move to approve.
Motion to approve by Commissioner Bear,
Second?
second by Commissioner Soboluk. Any further questions on the consent agenda? Hearing none, we'll vote. Dr. Bear?
Aye.
Ms. Soboluk?
Aye.
Mr. Frederick?
Aye.
Mr. Oderman?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Motion carries. This evening, we will be doing a proclamation for Giving Hearts Day. And before I begin with the proclamation, we have a few guests, as we can tell. And I heard someone wants to come forward. They'd like to come forward and
Hello, Dickinson City Commission. Thank you for giving us a few minutes of your time. My name is Ted Euchre. I'm with West River Health Services Foundation in Hettinger, North Dakota. We are the Southwest Giving Hearts Day Consortium, and we are proud to be here. We are a group of 15 nonprofit organizations in Southwest North Dakota, from Dickinson and Hettinger and Bowman and Regent and Sentinel Butte and Richardson. We are excited to be part of this coalition. Giving Hearts Day is coming up on February 8th. It's the largest giving day in the state of North Dakota and western Minnesota. And we hope all of you will consider a gift to a nonprofit organization, especially from our consortium, but also to any nonprofit that you so desire. There are 570 nonprofits that are part of Giving Hearts Day, and we hope you'll give it a chance at givingheartsday.org. Thank you for having us, and thank you for providing a proclamation for our important day for fundraising for our area nonprofits.
well, it's a great honor to be able to read this proclamation. And if you all just hold in place, I'll read the proclamation, get it signed, and then we can have you all up here for a picture if you'd like. That'll work? All right. So I'm going to go ahead. The City of Dickinson, North Dakota Proclamation. Giving Hearts Day Proclamation, Dickinson, North Dakota, in observance of Giving Hearts Day in Dickinson, North Dakota. Whereas, in 2008, Giving Hearts Day was created by the Dakota Medical Foundation and the Impact Foundation as the first one-day virtual fundraising event of its kind in the region. And whereas the goals of Giving Hearts Day are to raise awareness of the charitable nonprofit sector and its organizations in North Dakota and western Minnesota, to assist the organizations in better telling their mission stories, to promote online giving, and to promote donors the opportunity to multiply the results of their giving. And whereas this 24-hour online fundraising event is dedicated to inspiring online donations for charities at givingheartsday.org. And whereas Giving Hearts Day is powerful because it inspires so many to give for the first time or to contribute to their newly discovered charities. And whereas the charitable nonprofit sector provides much needed services that improve the quality of life for so many in our community. Whereas the charitable nonprofit sector supports individuals and families with quality programs, materials, and funds that will promote and encourage self-sufficiency. And whereas all of the above listed benefits serve to strengthen the fiber of our community and to make it richer for all residents. And whereas in order to provide these benefits, charities who provide these services need ongoing funds in order to provide long-term sustainable services for all residents in need. And whereas these charities have demonstrated a need for collaboration, resources, and have joined together for this one-day online fundraiser. Now, therefore, I, Scott Decker, President of Dickinson, North Dakota, do hereby declare February 8th, 2024, Giving Hearts Day in Dickinson, and call upon public officials, businesses, and community leaders, and educators, and encouraging of all Dickinson citizens to observe the day with appropriate ceremonies, activities, and programs in order to recognize the charitable nonprofit sector and their staff and volunteers who provide essential services that improve the quality of life for our citizens. Acknowledge that the charitable nonprofit sector is beneficial in Dickinson and Southwest North Dakota because it improves life outcomes and strengthens our community. Promote the support of charitable nonprofit sector that equips our citizens with tools needed to lead safe, healthy, and productive lives. And support Giving Hearts Day and take action by volunteering to make financial donations to local charities in Dickinson and Southwest North Dakota at givingheartsday.org. I hereby would look for a motion to approve this proclamation.
Move to approve.
I have a motion to approve.
Second.
With a second. All in favor, state aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Want to come up? I'll go ahead and... Yeah. It's all exciting. Water bottles and sugar packs.
Give me a second. I'm moving. Whoops.
Everybody in place? Are we all ready? All right.
Beautiful.
All right. Here we go. You wanna take that in? All right, thank you. Okay, moving right along, we'll move into city board and committee appointments. Mr. Dossinger?
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the commission. We have a few city boards and committees where members' terms expired at the end of last year. That includes the Planning and Zoning Board, which is a 3-year term, in which Mr. Scott Bullinger had held. He does desire reappointment. The second one is the Dickinson Municipal Airport Authority, which is a 5-year term. Mr. John Franzvog, he does desire reappointment. And the last one is the Southwest Water Authority, which is a 4-year term, and which Mr. Jason Benz's term expires. He does not desire reappointment. City staff recommends reappointment of Scott Bullinger and John Franzvog to the appropriate boards. We would need a separate motion for each one.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Dossinger. Any questions on the board appointments? I think Mr. Benz will have, whoever his replacement is, will have to run, take out a petition to run. So if anyone is interested, watching at home or in the audience, and would like to serve as a representative for the City of Dickinson on Southwest Water Authority. I would encourage you to take out a petition and get it circulated and get your name on the ballot to get elected into that position. Okay, on the first, Planning and Zoning, Mr. Bullinger, I'd look for a motion.
Mr. President, I move to approve Scott Bullinger for reappointment to Planning and Zoning.
We have a motion to approve Scott Bullinger for reappointment to Planning and Zoning by Commissioner Frederick.
Second?
Second by Commissioner Soboluk. Any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll vote. Mr. Frederick?
Aye.
Mrs. Soboluk?
Aye.
Mr. Oderman?
Aye.
Dr. Bear?
Aye.
Chair votes aye, motion carries. Our next appointment is Mr. John Franzwag to the Dickinson Municipal Airport Authority. I'd look for a motion.
Move to approve.
We have a motion to approve by Commissioner Oderman.
Aye. Second.
Second by Commissioner Bear. Any further discussion on this appointment? Hearing none, we'll go ahead and vote. Mr. Oderman?
Aye.
Dr. Bear?
Aye.
Mr. Frederick?
Aye.
Mrs. Soboluk?
Aye.
Chair votes aye, motion carries. Next item up is the 2024 Legacy Square liquor license approval. Mr. Dossinger?
Thank you, Mr. President. We received one bid for the 2024 concession liquor license for Legacy Square. The bid was from the Spur Bar for the minimum bid amount of $3,000. The bid did come in the morning of December 28th prior to the bid opening time established, but was past the 5 p.m. deadline of December 27th. As part of the bid requirements, it was indicated that the city reserves the right to reject any and all bids, to waive any informalities in the bidding process or any bids received, and to accept any bid which, in the sole judgment of the Board of City Commissioners, is in the city's best interest. City staff recommends approval of the bid to the Spur Bar for the 2024 concession liquor license.
Thank you, Mr. Dossinger. Any questions for Mr. Dossinger? And as stated, this was the only bid that was placed for this.
That is correct.
And since it was received after, there's no legality issues that we say we have to reject it and start over?
I believe if, as City Administrator Dossinger indicated, that our code particularly states that we have the right to reject any and all bids. In this particular situation, yes, it was received after, but because it was the only bid received, I'm more comfortable moving forward with it. Had there been other bids, then I would have instructed the city to rebid the process.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions? Not, I'd look for a motion on this liquor license approval.
Mr. President, I move to approve the Spur Bar to be the vendor for Legacy Square.
We have a motion to approve by Commissioner Bear.
Second?
Oh, go ahead.
Second?
Second by Commissioner Soboluk. Any further discussion or questions? Hearing none, we'll vote. Dr. Bear?
Aye.
Ms. Soboluk?
Aye.
Mr. Frederick?
Aye.
Mr. Oderman?
Aye.
Chair votes aye, motion carries. Mr. Dossinger, you have a report?
Thank you, Mr. President. As you are aware, our current Public Works Director, Gary Zerhoff, is set to retire at the end of this month. Gary has served the city diligently for many years, and his contributions have been invaluable to our community. In light of Gary's imminent retirement, the city has conducted an extensive and thorough interview process to identify the best candidate to fill the role of Public Works Director. After careful consideration, I am pleased to recommend Aaron Prouse for this position. Aaron has been serving as the interim Deputy Director in the Public Works Department. Aaron brings a wealth of experience and knowledge to his role, having been an integral part of the Public Works team for several years. His commitment to the city's infrastructure, coupled with his strategic vision for the department's future, aligns well with our community's needs. Throughout the interview process, Aaron showed a deep understanding of the challenges and opportunities facing our city in the realm of public works. I am seeking City Commission approval to officially appoint Aaron Prouse as the new Public Works Director, effective February 1st. If you have any questions or discussions regarding this recommendation, please feel free.
Thank you, Mr. Dossinger. Mr. Dossinger is correct. Comment even came in from applicants that came from out of state that this was possibly the most thorough process they have ever been through. I appreciate the time that staff has put forward, HR, and all other contributing staff to make sure that we get the best candidate in for interviews and make sure they feel welcome. They were very impressed, like I said, of the infrastructure that we built, and not only buildings but people. So it was one of those tough decisions, but I would concur with Mr. Dossinger that Mr. Prowse is the individual that we need in that position to carry forth the good work that they're doing out there. So, any questions for Mr. Dossinger or myself? I know Commissioner Frederick also sat in on the interviews, the final interviews, and some of you got to sit in the preliminary interviews. So, not, I would look for a motion to approve Mr. Prowse as the new Public Works Director effective February 1st. And we'll have swearing-in ceremony.
Next city commission.
Yeah, next city commission.
So moved.
Motion to approve by Commissioner Oderman,
Second.
second by Commissioner Bear. Any further discussion? We'll go ahead and vote. Mr. Oderman,
Aye.
Dr. Bear,
Aye.
Mr. Frederick,
Aye.
Mrs. Sobeluk.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Welcome aboard, Mr. Prowse.
Congratulations, Aaron. Get your
I don't know if you want to come up and give a speech or you
Yeah, I
got
was
something
gonna say,
prepared.
get your speech ready for the swearing-in ceremony.
Yeah. It was a long process yesterday. It went from 8 a.m. till I think we got out of here about 4.
Pretty close.
Yeah,
Yes.
4:30. So it was a long process yesterday. So, but in the end, it's well worth it, the time we put in. So, again, welcome, Mr. Prowse, to your new position. All right, the next item up, we have the State of the State address. Mr. Dossinger.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to make the commission aware of, and also the general public, two events coming up within our community. The first one's going to be held on January 23rd. That's the State of the State address. That's going to be held at 10 a.m., and that's going to be at the Dorothy Stickney Auditorium on the campus of the SU. And the second one's going to be on February 1st, the State of the City address. Time's going to be 11:30 at the Astoria. Commissioners, if you would like to attend that event, please get in touch with Mrs. Binstock regarding a place at the city tables for that. So, should be great. Two great events.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Dossinger. Next item up, we have a property and evidence tech job description. This will be presented by Mrs. Nominick, our HR director. Welcome.
Thank you, President Decker and Commissioners. The Property and Evidence Specialist is a position that was approved with the 2024 budget for the police department. This is a civilian support position that'll work with all of the divisions within the police department as well as the records division. This position will primarily manage and oversee the evidence processing system, and it'll include all the aspects of evidence intake, categorization, storage, distribution, and recording of physical and forensic evidence. This position will be responsible for technical preparations, redactions, distribution of audio-video evidence created through the Axon framework, interview and room recordings, PSAP center, audio logging systems, citywide intersection camera systems. They'll assist with the records division when there's need for help in that department. This position will report to the criminal investigations sergeant. It is a non-exempt position. It falls in grade 13, and city staff is recommending approval.
Thank you, Mrs. Nominack. Any questions on this position, the property and evidence specialist with the Dickinson Police Department? Not, I'd look for a motion on this for the approval or denial of the job description for property evidence technician.
Mr. President, move to approve.
I have a motion to approve by Commissioner Frederick,
Second.
second by Commissioner Sobeluk. Any questions? Comments? Hearing none, we'll vote. Mr. Frederick?
Aye.
Ms. Sobeluk?
Aye.
Mr. Oderman?
Aye.
Dr. Bear?
Aye.
Chair votes aye, motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next up, we have our monthly fire department report, and this will be presented by Chief Presnell.
Thank you, President Decker and Commissioners. Before you tonight to present the final report for 2023. Just a reminder, we do a lot more than just fire suppression. We do respond to some med calls within the city. We do a lot of different fire prevention activities. And then we are a part of several regional response teams in the southwestern part of the state. So an overview, we responded to 167 calls for service. That did put us at 1,938 calls for the year. That is about a 28% increase from where we were last year. That increase is a lot larger this year because last year we didn't start running the med calls full board until about June timeframe. So this is a full year of running that response model that we started last June or in 2022. So here's a breakdown of the calls by month, so you can kind of see it flattened out this year as compared to last year where we see that big jump where we first started running the medical calls. Call types, medical calls do account for the largest majority of our call response, and we did see an increase from past months in EMS calls. And the one thing we did notice is we do have a lot of COVID going around, and there was another bug going around that was hospitalizing our elderly population. So we did have a lot of responses there that really account for that increase. We did have 2 fires in December. We did get there quickly and were able to save most of the structure. So, calls by apparatus, because of the amount of stacked calls we had this month, or calls occurring at the same time, the engine and the ladder were out a lot more frequently than our QRU. We usually like to see that QRU out there a lot more, running a lot of those med calls, just so we don't have the big trucks out on the road. But because of multiple calls coming in at the same time, the trucks were just out and about and ended up responding to the calls. So we do expect to see that number of calls responded to by that QRU to go up in the future. Calls by station. Station 1 continues to be our busier station, and on the southern half of the city is where we did see a lot of our stat calls or multiple calls going on at one time. And you'll see in our response times, that'll reflect Station 2 or the station up at the Public Safety Center. You're going to see a little bit of an increase in their response time, and that's because they were responding down in Station 1's area quite a bit because of doubled up calls. So here's just a visual of where a lot of our calls happen. The redder, or the areas with the red on the heat map, are usually going to be our apartment complexes or some of our multifamily dwellings that we have in the community. That's usually why they show the hottest in the heat map. And here's our response times. Station 1 response times are doing pretty well. We're right there where we need to be. Like I said, Station 2 did respond into Station 1's area quite a bit, so we did see that reflecting in our increased response time out of Station 2. It's not horrible, but we'd still like to see that a little closer to that 5 minutes and 20 seconds. Training hours, this is an area that we did really well this year, and we attribute that a lot to that training captain position that we put into place last year. We were way over on our hours, which is probably the first time, definitely since I've been here, where we've exceeded all of our training hour requirements for ISO, for EMS, and all that stuff. So we were way over in a lot of areas, so that was really nice to see. Fire prevention activities, we had 120 routine inspections that the fire prevention division did complete this last month, and then 59 other prevention activities, whether that's just through a phone call or a follow-up, or going out into to daycares, schools, whatever, doing station tours. And then there were 2 certificate of occupancies issued this last month. And with that, I'd gladly answer any questions that you have.
Thank you, Chief Bresnell. Any questions on the monthly fire report? Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Chief.
Next up, we have Public Safety. Chief Ciani, you got a couple of, you got a grant and a grant application.
I do. Good evening, President Decker and Commissioners. Presenting the Back to Blue grant here. The North Dakota legislators appropriated $3.5 million in what was dubbed Back to Blue grant. The grant was meant to be applied toward recruitment and retention issues associated with local law enforcement and correctional officers. The Dickinson Police Department received a total of $61,742 from the Back to Blue legislative appropriations staged for distribution. Due to the restrictive nature of the funds and how they must be spent, I'm recommending a holistic, equitable approach geared specifically towards retention. I'm proposing each sworn member of the Dickinson Police Department who did not receive a sign-on bonus when they were hired be paid an equal share of the fund balance and one lump sum distribution. I'm requesting Commission approval for distribution of the Back to Blue funds in the described manner. And with that, I'll take any questions. As you are aware, I did have a different plan associated with these funds, but rather than just a payout of sorts. But I was restricted on what I could be used. I had to send a approval report to the AG's office, and I was denied my first plan. And they were clear that this had to be spent out towards recruitment and retention payout specifically. So that's how we got to where we're at now. So with that, I'll take any questions.
Thank you, Chief Ciani. Any questions for Chief Ciani on his intentions with the Back to Blue grant that was received by the city?
Do you know roughly how many officers will be receiving it?
33 officers would be eligible right now, coming up to right around $1,870 an officer pre-tax. So post-tax, I'm assuming it's going to be right around $1,500 payout for officer.
As Chief Ciani said, his hands are tied by legislation. He did submit for an alternative, but was denied. So I think this is an equitable way to distribute the money to and make sure that we stick within their intent, the legislature's intent. So any other questions or comments? Not, I'd look for a motion.
Mr. President, I move to approve.
Motion to approve by Commissioner Bear.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Frederick. Any further questions? Hearing none, we'll vote. Dr. Bear,
Aye.
Mr. Frederick,
Aye.
Ms. Soboluk,
Aye.
Mr. Oderman.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Chief, you have a resiliency grant application?
I do. Fortunately, when I did submit my request for the appropriation of the Back to Blue funds, I was advised of a resiliency grant that was also available. I had limited time to submit for that grant, but I did submit the grant within a day's notice and was actually successful. That resiliency grant, North Dakota Legislature approved an appropriation of funds meant to support the overall wellness of North Dakota law enforcement and correctional staff through resiliency programs and training. The Dickinson Police Department applied for and was successful in securing a resiliency-based grant for the amount of just under $50,000. The monies will be used to fund significantly discounted family memberships at a West River Community Center for all sworn staff of the Dickinson Police Department to include their eligible dependents for a 5-year period. I believe this will have a lasting positive impact on overall officer and family wellness while aiding in recruitment and retention. The payout would also benefit Parks and Recreation, giving them a lump sum of money to potentially be used to for maintenance and/or equipment acquisitions. I'm requesting commission approval to enter into a contract with Dickinson Parks and Recreation appropriating the grant funds for this purpose.
Thank you, Chief. Any questions?
What an odd amount, they shorted you 20 cents, huh?
Well, I had to split their form filler required me to split out payments in a 5-year plan, so I had 50,000 in an agreement we had made, so it came out to this odd amount, so. I'll kick in the 20 cents.
Okay. Any other comments or questions?
Ben Ray will make me kick in the 20 cents.
I'd move to approve.
Have a motion to approve by Commissioner Sobeluk.
Second.
A second by Commissioner Oderman. Any further comments or questions? Hearing none, we'll vote. Mrs. Sobeluk.
Aye.
Mr. Oderman.
Aye.
Mr. Frederick.
Aye.
Dr. Bear.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Motion carries. And Chief, you have a report, liquor and tobacco license failures.
Yes, tobacco and alcohol compliance check were conducted on December 19th by the Dixon Police Department, supported by Southwest District Health Unit. 14 tobacco checks and 17 alcohol checks were completed on that date. Black Market Vape, the Pit Stop, and Cenex on West Ballard all failed the tobacco compliance checks. The Astoria Motel, Grill and Bar failed the alcohol check. None of these businesses that were cited have had any similar violations in the past year. So, with that, I'll take any questions regarding that.
So the appropriate paperwork is being sent to them
Yes.
so that they understand a second compliance failure, what's
That is
going to
correct.
happen. Okay. All right. Great. Anything else to add, Chief?
No, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, it's 5 o'clock. Public hearing, public comments time. First item up this evening, we have a public hearing, a rezone request from the Highway Department edition. This will be presented by City Planner Galbert. Welcome.
Thank you, Mayor Decker. Good evening, City Commission. I am Matthew Gallagher, City Planner for the City of Dickinson. Before you today is a petition to rezone Block 1 Highway Department Edition from general commercial to public. The NDDOT operations at the subject parcel are demonstrably non-commercial in nature and provide a general public service. By that metric alone, staff acknowledges the clear benefit of rezoning. Doing so will enable the property owner to construct a maintenance facility with approval of a special use permit, which is not permissible with the current general commercial zoning zoning classification. So, strong community development in this area generally is challenging due to the footprint of the property and its centrality. It causes some complications with transportation planning in the future, generally in the long run. So, staff has been coordinating with NDDOT so far to troubleshoot some screening conditions. Seems that there is no appetite to consider relocating. So since they were platted in 1975, this seems to be the situation that we are going to be working with. But they so far have been good partners in sort of trying to address some issues that we have with the residential development to the east, having some situation with screening the outdoor storage of equipment, where there's also difficulty to do so with such a large perimeter for the property, and it is difficult to establish foliage due to some previous swampy conditions. So no comments from the public have been submitted as of the date of this report. And after accounting for the entire contextual situation of this property, planning staff recommends approval of this application based on the merits of the zoning petition itself, which is that public zoning is certainly more appropriate than general commercial for their operations, and that relocation is not an option. With that, I'll stand for any questions.
Thank you. Any questions for the city planner? I didn't think they'd move.
Be
I didn't
nice.
have very high hopes.
So,
So relocation is, I mean, it's easy to say that relocation isn't an option, but it's not an option because they don't want to move, correct?
Well, that would be a conversation with them. We can only go so far in questioning their decisions for their operations. It does seem that there is there's no willingness, at least so far with my interactions with them, but Community Development Director Joshua Skluzacek might have a different take on it.
Yeah, I had a couple conversations with Rob Rayhorn, the district engineer, and they have no future plans of relocation, largely due to the cost of future relocation, so.
Yeah, I think them building that administrative building again would be very cost prohibitive right now, so. So this is ordinance 1791. This is a public hearing. If
guess-
there's no questions from the.
My only question is, I mean, can we actually really deny the special use permit?
Yes. Yes, in
Since
a-
it's the
sorry.
state, I mean, wouldn't they just do it anyway? I mean, does the city actually have the ability to tell them they can't build on their, this?
I guess that's a legal question, but I believe we do, so.
I think the question to that would be is the position that we would take is the city as its own jurisdiction within its own boundaries would have the authority to delegate and regulate what happens within its boundaries. So I think the answer to that would be yes, but I don't think we want to do that. So,
I would say.
but I think the thought would be is let's be good neighbors and work together as best we can.
I mean, this is a prime piece of property. It'd be nice to be redeveloped into something other than a road grader filling station, but.
As far as the city's ability to apply our zoning ordinance, it's kind of a case of you probably, how's the saying go, careful what you wish for, because we wouldn't want to just basically open the door, say, just do whatever you want in all cases. So at the
Yeah.
very least, through the special use permit process for the future maintenance facility, we do get an opportunity to see, what is state government, federal government looking to do in the center of our town. So it's good to go through the process. Generally, they could, if, for example, we were to, or you, sorry, were to deny the application, there probably is a means that they could go through another channel, through more of a top-down oriented methodology.
I mean, I guess my concern here is like, I don't have a problem with them doing this, but long-term, I want to ensure that, I mean, this is a regularly used thoroughfare through the city of Dickinson. I want to make sure that aesthetically, this doesn't turn into something that kind of looks like more industrial type development in the middle of town.
Mhm. It will be very difficult, I think, to pull this back as if this is approved, especially if the special use permit is approved, because once that maintenance facility is in there, it's going to be a little bit hard to change the development pattern. The biggest issue in this area is that there is no through connection east to west at the property, so all those people are going to have to go up to 21st Street, and it causes some left turn conditions in a way. But there are other solutions to look at in this area in general. For example, all of this general commercial and community commercial zoning area, we could have a different or another look at the development regulations generally, and we could take measures such that there would be a generational change in this area where it would work better, it would flow better, and there would be a higher density of diversified uses, residential offers, commercial offers. For example, circulating more people, but we'll have to do it pretty intentionally. It seems that approval of these applications will make it more challenging, but based on the history, since they've been there for 50 years, of course, it's going to be a little difficult to say no.
I guess what I'm speaking to there is like, the further north you get on this property, like just south of Logo Magic there, the landscaping and stuff kind of hides it. Maybe that's a direction we need to go, is that, further to the south, maybe we need to plant some more trees or ask them to plant some more trees just so that it's a little bit more.
This is what we've worked on so far. There seems to be some history with dumping on the site in the past, which have been cleaned up, and the soil conditions, at least on the southeast lot line, they make it quite difficult to plant vegetation that would actually cover that. Incidentally, that is also where most of the outdoor equipment storage is. So my opinion is that this is one of the main factors, not the only one, but probably the largest one, which results in the residential development not coming to fruition directly to the east.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions? Not, this is a public hearing. I'll open up to the public. If anyone from the public wishes to come forward, has any concerns, questions on the rezone of the North Dakota DOT location on the north side of town, please come forward, state your name. If you're watching online, 701-456-7006. This again is ordinance 1791. Anyone have any comments on the rezone? Any comments on the rezone ordinance 1791? I'll close the public hearing for the Highway Department addition rezone, ordinance 1791. Commissioners, if you don't have any further questions for city staff, I'd look for a motion.
What are we looking to approve here? The rezoning and the special use permit, or just?
No, just the rezone
Okay.
from.
I'd move to approve the rezone.
Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Oderman, second by Commissioner Frederick. Any further questions or comment? Hearing none, we'll vote. Mr. Oderman,
Aye.
Mr. Frederick,
Aye.
Ms. Soboluk,
Aye.
Dr. Bear.
Aye.
Chair votes aye, motion carries. Next item up is the public comments on items not on the agenda. If you wish to come forward, you have any comments on items not on the agenda this evening or on the agenda, to that matter, please come forward, state your name, and thank you.
Good evening. My name is Arlen Hofflin, and I'd like to make some comments according to the SID 2024012 as far as special assessments. First question I have is, what was the number of protests that were filed for that?
I think we have 20%. Is that correct?
You had to double check the staff report, but yeah, I believe it was right around there.
Is it possible to get a list of the people who filed a protest, or is that not feasible?
Actual number is 22.4%.
Okay.
So there was 67 parcels. I think you're located on the south side of the river.
Right.
Yeah, there's 67 parcels, 14 individuals filed for protest, so 22.4%.
Okay. So in other words, we needed 50, so
Right.
it's gonna happen. What happens if we still, after the assessment, the homeowner doesn't agree with the amount that they're being assessed for? What are the steps that we can go through?
Well, I guess I would defer to legal first before we go over to engineering, so the process.
Initially, Mr. President, Commissioners, obviously that amount is set based on what the prior estimates were given. I believe that when we had talked about this at the last meeting, there was discussion and comment about visiting with certain homeowners who had questions or concerns about the total value of their assessment, to see, how they arrived at that assessment. And I don't know if that occurred or not yet, and that'll be a question for Mr. Skolacek. But there's also the opportunity, of course, for the homeowner to put that and repair in him or herself as well. So I don't know if that cost would be affected or not. But I will turn it over to Josh to answer that question before I answer the second portion.
Yes, so I'll let Loretta come speak to this, if you get a chance, Loretta.
Good evening. With regards to your question about ability, if you don't agree with the amount, I'd just like to address the estimated amount first. That estimate is based on projects in the past and that cost. As the SIDs move forward, because both areas did not receive enough protests to protest them out, we would are looking for approval this evening later on to move forward with bidding. Once we go through the bidding process, we'll have a better understanding of what it will cost for these concrete items, which are being assessed to property owners. At that time, we'll have a better number. In addition to that, property owners can talk with our consultant, KLJ, and city staff. They'll come out and look at concerns that you might have regarding what's being assessed to specific properties and what was looked at when they came up with the assessment, and explain to you what they saw and what they want to replace, and those discussions can be had. As was mentioned, there's also the opportunity to have the replacements done by a contractor of your choice. We just ask that that work be coordinated with the city and our consultant so that the work is done in the manner that it's designed in our project, and that it's done before our contractor would come through, so that coordination can happen. And we ask that it's done before, just so that we can assure that that improvement happens, not that we are asking our contractor to come back and fill in spaces that they've already been through.
What happens if I don't agree with whoever comes to look at my repairs that need to be made? What's the next step then?
I think that you would take that up with Director Sklacek and have a conversation about whether he feels that he agrees with your opinion of the condition of the concrete or not.
Okay. I have a couple other questions. Is this a common practice now that whenever there's any, like a new development, is there special assessments that go with that, or is that not covered by the developers or by our taxes?
No, the developers, when they build a new subdivision, they have to put in the sidewalks and the infrastructure, and they basically charge that as part of their fee then when they sell their lot or develop property if it has a house on it.
If there's any improvements in the rest of the city, does that automatically become a special assessment? Like, say,
Yes, it has.
and how long has that process been going? I'm just trying to get some history, I guess.
At least 6 or 8 years now, I believe.
As long as I've been on the commission.
So whenever there's work done, then it always ends up being a special assessment depending on the cost?
I mean, prior to me being on the commission, and I think this is my 8th year maybe, I'm not exactly sure, but 2016. So we used to just always pay for it prior to that.
Yeah.
But I mean, projects continue to get more and more expensive, and some of these areas we were going into hadn't had curb and gutter and sidewalks fixed in 45 years, you know, so we had to come up with a different plan. I mean, some cities assess everything,
Yeah.
the paving, everything. We found it, I mean, I was part of the policy when we originally talked when Mr. Kubis was still here. The process was to be simple. It was to fix the curb and gutter in front of your place. If you needed sidewalk repairs, it was the basic stuff. I mean, we excluded any corners where they needed the handicap ramps. Those are not assessed to you. Those are paid by the city. So it was just basically the curb and gutter in front of your house and the sidewalk in front of your house. If they needed repair, that would be assessed back to you. And I believe that's the policy we've stayed with ever since.
And
Yeah,
we
that-
don't
that's correct.
charge, our initial discussion was to charge, most cities charge for the street repair. In their older, we decided we wouldn't charge for the street, we would cover the street.
I
Just
mean-
something in passing, it's probably not so prevalent in our neighborhood, but you made the comment that some of the repairs hadn't been made for 40, 45 years, which falls upon typically the older generation or the people who are just starting something to maybe, you know, when you're a brand-new homeowner, just starting to move in here and you're looking at those types of things, or if you're on the other end of the spectrum, getting close to moving out permanently, that's something to maybe,
Yeah, it all depends. I mean, I just use myself as a case. I bought a house that was built in 1966 initially.
yeah.
And my curb and gutter was basically crumbling in, 2015, around there. So it, approaching 50 years old, I just took it upon myself to replace it. But I knew that, eventually I'm going to either do it or the city's going to come through and do it. And sometimes you do get caught. Sometimes you're the first homeowner and you've been there for 40 years and you are elderly and you're probably on fixed income. That's why we've extended it out that amount of period of time to try to balance it a little bit. And sometimes the district last year, there was a couple of brand new homeowners that bought older houses and they got caught in this process because they were first year owners and the sidewalk needed to be replaced.
So
Yeah, I
I
think-
guess my one question would be then is there a set process that I can tell my neighbors or whatever if I want the city engineer, whoever that's gonna come over, who do we go through in steps so we know? Because there's going to be a number, to be perfectly honest, I talked to way more than the number of people that filed, that said they were going to, which apparently they didn't. So there's going to be a lot of questions, I'm thinking. So it would help if there's a set process, or do we just call a number and set up an individual type of,
So you want a point of contact is basically.
I
to start.
want a point of contact, and I want to know the procedure that we're going to follow, so it's not a hit and miss. It should be pretty much the same for anybody that wants to have a second
Yeah.
opinion.
Well, as Mrs. Marshak said, first we're going to get this approved tonight, then we'll get the bids. The actual bids get the actual cost. Then you'll know a truer number for your area. And then after that, I guess, Mr. Skolasczyk.
Yeah, I mean, at any time you can contact and set up an appointment with me, and happy to have a discussion on your specific questions, so.
That's all I have. Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you.
Josh, I would add that, like, I think we need to make some adjustments to this timeline, because this is not the time of year that you want to be going out with property owners and doing a second set of eyes assessment on the property. We don't want to be looking at sidewalks when it's 20 below zero.
Yeah.
Yeah, so-
Well, then there could be ice and
yeah.
snow and
So just for the safety of our citizens and for city staff and stuff like that, we should probably look at this timeline, like, to where we're having this conversation in September or October, so we can actually get out there and make a fair assessment of things. Or if not earlier.
Correct, and I agree with that assessment, as well as, even for myself to go out,
Yeah.
later this week, that's gonna be cold. So, that's part of the reason, and I mentioned in the monthly report last commission meeting, that we're ultimately looking before the end of this month to RFP the road maintenance project for 2025, trying to move up that timeline as best we can so that it is more, still within that construction season when we're actually getting the approval of the SID for the following year, so the weather is better when we're actually talking about all these things. It's not over the holidays, it's not all these other circumstances. So. But appreciate the feedback.
Anyone else have any comments? No one else is wishing to make comments this evening. I'll close the public comment section and we'll go back to community development. The first item up is the Renaissance Zone Development Plan Amendment, and this will be presented by City County Planner Josephson.
Good evening, President Decker, Commissioners, Steve Josephson. These are a series of text amendments to the city's Renaissance Zone Development Plan. Let's see. This last legislative session in 2023, the legislature approved a number of changes to the Century Code regarding the Renaissance Zone. Just to reiterate, the Renaissance Zone program is one that the state has that allows local governments to use this as an economic incentive program. The idea is that property owners, the potential lessees, and so on can improve properties within older portions of town, and then not get the next year not get socked with a big tax increase because of a change in assessment. So among the different things that the legislature approved were an increase in the tax exemption period for residential rehabilitation projects from 5 to 8 years. Those are the ones that are owner occupied. It increases the benefit period for commercial projects from currently it's 5 years. It'd become a minimum of 5 years to up to 8 years if the investment amount is at least 75% of the current true and full value. It also allows properties that had previously received Renaissance Zone benefits, additional benefits after 30 years have lapsed from the completion of the initial project. There aren't any in Dickinson yet, but there will be within the next few years because the Renaissance Zone program was adopted by the city in 2005. And then to allow for 2 exceptions or islands for the primary contiguous zone. If you remember, a couple of years ago, City Commission approved a change to the Renaissance Zone where there were 2 blocks, where the mall is and the property immediately to the north of it as that non-contiguous area. It would allow, if the city wanted to find another non-contiguous area, they would take that out of their blocks and non-productive blocks and move it move it over there. These changes were all proposed by staff from the Department of Community of Commerce after hearing comments from different cities that participated in the Renaissance Zone project program. Talking to Commerce staff, they said if a city wants to take advantage of these changes, they need to amend their Renaissance Zone development plan to reflect these, to reflect these changes, and that's what you have in front of you today. This did come to the Planning and Zoning Commission back in December. Planning and Zoning Commission recommended approval, as did staff, and I'm here today to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Josephson. Anything to add, Chairman of the Planning and Zoning?
No, I think just some minor changes and they extended the programs basically, so I think at Planning and Zoning adopted the changes and we're just looking for a final adoption here, so.
Mr. Josephson, any idea for a second island?
I know Ryan Gillick has mentioned a property, but I think he's going to wait until after this is done before we have any discussions. If that's what the if during research that's what staff wants to wants to recommend. A couple of things I just wanted to mention is I think one of the things that's really going to be good is for those projects that had previously been approved, and right now you're one and done. Enough changes over a 30-year period of time that perhaps the project that was approved then, things have changed, and we have a number of those projects downtown that some of them are vacant, some of them are, this would allow a chance to reinvest and perhaps make it into some sort of a project that would work in the current economic, current economic situation. Another, yeah,
Mr. Joseph, real quick here, on these islands, like if we were to find a second island, does that island have to be zoned for the full 5 to 8 years?
Well, the
As a
project
Renaissance zone?
the project would be, but here's the thing, once you take a property out of the current zone, an unproductive, and you create an island, that, once you remove a property from the Renaissance zone, you can't put it back.
Okay.
So, because they didn't increase the number of blocks we can have.
No.
So if we take something out, like right now we have most of Villard in the Renaissance zone and a lot of the downtown. So if we take any of that stuff out, like we had talked about before, we took the old city hall out of that at one time. That can never go back in now.
Right, so I think in the future, if there's gonna be any changes in Renaissance zone blocks, really need to contemplate, if, that new property, if that property is really has the potential to, develop, and also look at what you may be giving up. One other thing I also wanted to mention, two other things, is for the Renaissance zone for the city expires at the end of this, early July. One of the changes that was made to the legislation was, to the Century Code, is that now cities can ask for a 10-year expansion instead of a 5-year expansion, which will be coming back to planning and zoning and to city commission for that, because I'm assuming that, I think in some ways this has been an effective economic development tool. And also, we did receive an application for a Renaissance zone project that should be coming to planning and zoning in February.
Yeah, I mean, going from 5 to 8 years is, the tax exemption is
Yeah.
a pretty big deal for some of these
Yeah.
stuff that we have in now. It just, we have to look at along Villard, if there's some areas we don't think that it's being used, do we take it back out? But, I mean, we took some out by the college too. I think in that last,
And we adjusted a few years back. There was property on the south side of the tracks that had been in the Renaissance zone for over 10 years.
Since inception.
Yeah. and
Since
they
inception, and
did
nothing was
with it.
happening.
They did nothing with it, so we pulled them out of it. I mean, you had a 10-year period opportunity.
yeah, 'cause how many blocks is it, Mr. Joseph? 30?
Right now, we have 41 blocks.
41 blocks.
41 blocks, and that's because of the change increase by the state, and also the increase in census.
That's right.
So, Mr. Josephson, this might be just a colossally stupid question, but I'm gonna ask it. What prevents us from creating something in the city of Dickinson that is similar to the Renaissance zone, that is unique to the city of Dickinson, that would provide similar benefits from a tax standpoint?
There's nothing. There's nothing. This is
We
just
had
a
it-
program.
We had it at one time.
Yeah, and this is just a program that enables local governments to ask.
So there's nothing
To ask for this.
that prevents us from putting our heads together and saying, hey, maybe we can create something that's even better than the Renaissance zone as the city of Dickinson to help spur this type of development that we're looking for.
It'd basically be a TIF.
Yeah,
We
and
already have a TIF.
Right, and here's
mean, it's just
I'm
that-
sorry, Commissioner
Yeah,
Frederick.
I mean, we have a TIF, but, I mean, you just have to get all the other taxing entities on
Yeah,
board.
that's the thing.
Right, and the thing is, under state law, you can't do TIF and rent zone project
Right.
on the same property.
Yeah, we could come up with a tax exemption TIF for other areas. It's just that you got 4 other taxing entities, you have to get to agree to that.
Well, people can be mad at them. They can be happy with us.
Well, the other program that, keep in mind, Stark Development also has their facade program. They were approved for money for facade improvement. It's not as great as the benefit from this, but it still helps.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, I agree, this is a great program, but I mean, there's just limitations on the blocks, the number of blocks and stuff like that. And so is there something we can do from a city standpoint? And I know that we have the TIFs, but there is that limitation of having those others get on board and.
Well, at one
And I
point,
think just so everybody understands, I mean, the tax exemption isn't a full tax exemption.
Yeah.
They take the value of what the property is at the time of the project starts, and then you're exempt for that 8 years
Yep.
on any of the improvements.
Yeah.
So you're still paying property tax, you're not getting it for free for 8 years.
It's frozen.
It's just
It's,
frozen.
it's frozen for that 5-year period of time, you know, and, you know, as I said, the idea is not to sock somebody who's willing to put a lot of money into improving a piece of property in an older area of town, and then the next year they get hit with a huge tax bill. The state also provides, income tax, you know, an income tax exemption too over that period of time.
And it's a big investment, because the 5 years is 50%, right, of the value? You have to be investing 50.
Right.
So if it's 100,000, you have to be putting 50,000 in to get the 5 years, and it's 75% to get the 8 years. Is that correct?
Yeah, 75%.
So I mean, if you have a $100,000 property, you gotta put 75,000 into it to get that 8 years.
Well, and just think of it this way, okay, if you're taking some of these older structures, a lot of the cost is gonna be bringing it up to code. You know, and if you had buildings that were built, in the early part of the last century, you know, you have to rewire, you've gotta bring in new air conditioning and heating, plumbing. There may be a number of other structural improvements that you need to make, you know, in order to operate, you know, in order to operate this. And that's why this is aimed at some of the, you know, the older areas. Why it's aimed at the older areas of town.
Agreed. And we've had pretty good success with the program. I mean, we've had quite a few projects over the years.
Yeah, I think we've had some good projects.
Yeah.
okay, any other comments on the Renaissance Zone Development Plan Amendment? I don't think this has a resolution or ordinance attached to it, does it? No.
Resolution. It's a resolution.
Is it a resolution? Okay.
It is, that's correct.
It is a resolution?
Yes.
Okay, this will be resolution number 01-2024. Commissioners, I'd look for a motion.
I'd move to approve.
I have a motion to approve by Commissioner Sobeluk,
Second.
second by Commissioner Bear. Any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll vote. Mrs. Sobeluk?
Aye.
Dr. Bear?
Aye.
Mr. Oderman?
Aye.
Mr. Frederick?
Aye.
Chair votes aye, motion carries.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Our next item up is the 2024 Road Maintenance SID District 202401-1. Mrs. Marshak?
Good evening, President Decker, Commissioners. For your consideration is a resolution determining the protests of the 2024 Road Maintenance Special Improvement District 2024-01-1. This district was established in November with approval by this board of Resolution 33-2023. The protest period for the project, as required by North Dakota Century Code, ended on December 29th, 2023, with a total of 0 protests. This accounts for 0% of the properties protesting, and those protests did not meet the statutory requirement to bar the city from proceeding with the special improvement project. The total project, which includes this district and District 2, accounts for an estimated $2.2 million, which will be funded through a combination of special assessments and city funds. The assessment amount will be included in property taxes and paid back over a 10-year period at an interest rate of 5.9%. Those who pay their assessments in full by October 1st of 2025 will not be charged interest or penalties. Do you have any questions for me regarding this item?
Thank you, Mrs. Marshak. Any questions for Mrs. Marshak on the 2024 Road Maintenance SID District 202401-1, which will also be Resolution 02-2024? If there are no questions, I'd look for a motion.
I'd move to approve.
Motion to approve by Commissioner Sobeluk,
Second.
second by Commissioner Frederick. Any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll vote. Mrs. Sobeluk?
Aye.
Mr. Frederick?
Aye.
Mr. Oderman?
Aye.
Dr. Bear?
Aye.
Chair votes aye, motion carries.
Thank you.
Mrs. Marshak, you have the second district, which is the 202-401-2.
That is correct. For your consideration, this is a resolution determining the protests of the 2024 Road Maintenance Special Improvement District 2024-01-2. This district was also established in November by this board with Resolution 34-2003. Excuse me, 2023. The protest period for this project, as required by North Dakota Century Code, also ended on December 29th of 2023 with a total of 14 protests received, accounting for 22.4% of the properties. These protests did not meet the statutory requirement to bar the city from proceeding with the Special Improvement District. As I mentioned previously, the estimated cost for Area 1 and 2 is an estimated $2.2 million, which will be funded through a combination of special assessment and city funds at an interest rate of 5.9%. If you pay your assessments in full by October 1st of 2025, as with the initial property, you will not be charged interest or penalties. Again, any questions that you may have on this item?
Thank you, Mrs. Marshak. Any questions for Mrs. Marshak? This is Resolution 03-2024. If there are no questions, I'd look for a motion.
Mr. President, move to approve.
We have a motion to approve by Commissioner Frederick,
Second.
second by Commissioner Oderman. Any further discussion or questions? Hearing none, we'll vote. Mr. Frederick?
Aye.
Mr. Oderman?
Aye.
Ms. Solok?
Aye.
Dr. Bear?
Aye.
Chair votes aye, motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you. President Decker, I'd just like to also mention that in the letters that went out to all the residents, my contact information is included, and they for sure can reach out to me if they have any additional questions.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Marshak. Next up, we have a presentation for the KLJ Public Safety Center Task Order. This will be presented by Engineering and Community Development Director Skoluzicek.
Good evening, Mr. President, Commissioners. Tonight I'd like to present the task order for the Public Safety Training Center facility and the engineering and design associated with that facility. An RFP went out earlier in 2023, and ultimately we did receive 2 proposals on this, and we'd like to award this to KLJ Engineering LLC to perform the engineering services for this project. This is an hourly rate not to exceed amount within the task order. Specifically for this project, there'll be included the site grading, site planning, the public and private utilities within the project area, and then all of the National Environmental Policy Act documentation, as well as a Class 1 North Dakota State Historical Preservation Office study. Some of those additional requirements for the environmental and the archaeological studies and documentation, those are added in this scope of work to meet the Department of Defense criteria, the grant that we're looking to submit later on in 2024. And some of the attributes on this site that we intend to include are the fire department burn tower, the police department indoor shooting range, a running track, parking lot area, as well as then a potential future office/training type building. This site is directly adjacent to the North Dakota National Guard Readiness Center that's actually being constructed right now, and there's an intent to have joint use between the 2 facilities with the National Guard as well as our public safety staff. So engineering staff has reviewed this. City Attorney Wanko has reviewed the task order, and engineering staff recommends approval.
Thank you, Josh. Any questions? Not, I'd look for a motion on this task order.
Mr. President, I move to approve.
Motion to approve by Commissioner Bear,
Second.
second by Commissioner Oderman. Any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll vote. Dr. Bear?
Aye.
Mr. Oderman?
Aye.
Mr. Frederick?
Aye.
Ms. Sobeluk?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Motion carries. That is the end of our regular agenda. Commissioners, this is your time. Any items that you wish to bring up that were not on the agenda this evening? Hearing nothing, I'd look for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
We are adjourned.